In ancient Greece, Sparta was known for its unmatched military power. Their soldiers were trained from childhood under the harsh agag system, making them highly disciplined and feared across the region. Their battle formation, the phalanx, was considered almost impossible to break. But on July 6, 371 BC, in the plains of Boeotia, that belief was challenged. The Theban general, Epaminondas, introduced a new military strategy that changed the course of Greek history. This is the story of the Battle of Leuctra, where innovative tactics and disciplined troops led Thebes to defeat the Spartans for the first time, ending their dominance over Greece. So how did it come to this? What lit the fuse that would finally explode at Leuctra? After crushing their rivals in Athens in the Peloponnesian War, Sparta was the undisputed king of the hill in Greece. But they weren't gracious winners. Spartan arrogance and their habit of violently interfering in the business of other city-states created a lot of enemies. They propped up puppet governments, garrisoned cities with their own troops, and basically enforced their will with the threat of their unstoppable army. The real trouble started with Thebes, the leading city of a federation known as the Boeotian League. Thebes had once been Sparta's ally, but the relationship had gone sour. The Spartans saw the growing power of the League as a direct threat and decided to put a stop to it. In 382 BC, they did something truly outrageous. They seized the Cadmea, the citadel of Thebes itself, and installed their own pro-Spartan government. This was a flagrant violation of a peace treaty that Sparta itself was supposed to enforce, a treaty that guaranteed the autonomy of Greek cities. This humiliation didn't break Thebes, it lit a fire under it. In 379 BC, a group of Theban exiles led by the fearless Pelopidas snuck back into the city, assassinated the pro-Spartan leaders, and with the help of the people, kicked the Spartan garrison out. This was a direct challenge, and it marked the beginning of the Theban-Spartan War. Over the next few years, Sparta tried again and again to crush Thebes. The Spartan king Agesilaus II, who had a deep personal hatred for the Thebans, led multiple invasions. But each time, the Thebans, led by the brilliant duo of Pelopidas and his close friend Epaminondas, fought them off. Thebes started rebuilding the very league Sparta had tried to tear down. The breaking point came in 371 BC at a peace conference in Sparta. Everyone was ready to sign a treaty to end the constant fighting. The Spartan king swore the oath on behalf of Sparta and its entire league of allies. But when the Theban representative Epaminondas stepped up, he insisted on doing the same, signing not just for Thebes but for all of Boeotia. King Agesilaus refused. He saw a chance to isolate Thebes and deny its power. He told Epaminondas to sign for Thebes alone, or not at all. In a stunning act of defiance, Epaminondas refused, effectively choosing war over submission. For the hardliners in Sparta, this was the final insult. This was their chance to finally wipe Thebes off the map. An order was sent to the other Spartan king, Cleombrotus, whose army was already nearby. The message was simple: don't go home. March on Thebes. Everything now came down to two men leading their armies onto that field, and they couldn't have been more different. On the Spartan side was King Cleombrotus I. As a Spartan king, he was the living embodiment of a military tradition hundreds of years old. He was a company man, expected to lead from the front and stick to the script. His army was just like him, disciplined, professional, and used to winning the same way, every time. Cleombrotus was brave, no doubt, but he was conventional. He was under huge pressure from the Warhawks back home to deliver a quick, clean victory using the same old tactic, the unstoppable Spartan steamroller. Facing him was Epaminondas, one of the most incredible figures in Greek history. He wasn't just a general, he was a philosopher and a statesman. Where Cleombrotus represented tradition, Epaminondas was all about innovation. He knew he couldn't beat Sparta by playing their game. He had to outthink them. His training wasn't in the Spartan agog. It was in the lecture halls of Thebes, studying geometry and rhetoric. He understood that a battle wasn't just about troop numbers, it was about psychology, morale, and politics. A victory here wouldn't just be a victory. It would be an earthquake that could bring Sparta's entire world crashing down. And he had a secret weapon, his friend Pelopidas, the heart and soul of the Theban resistance. Pelopidas commanded the sacred band. This was an elite corps of 300 soldiers handpicked for their skill. But they were more than that. The unit was composed of 150 pairs of male lovers. The idea was simple but profound. Who would fight harder more desperately than a man protecting the person he loved most in the world? Formed just a few years earlier, they were Thebes' professional shock troops, the tip of the spear that Epaminondas was about to aim at Sparta's heart. When the sun rose on July 6th, it revealed two armies drawn up for a fight. The numbers didn't look good for Thebes. King Cleombrotus had somewhere around 11,000 heavy infantry, known as hoplites, plus about 1,000 cavalry. The core of that force was 700 elite Spartiates, the full citizens who were the foundation of Sparta's invincible reputation. The rest were allies who might not have been too excited to be there. Crucially, the Spartan cavalry was notoriously poor. Against this machine, Epaminondas had maybe 7,000 men. He was badly outnumbered, and some of his own allies were terrified of facing the Spartans. In fact, on the morning of the battle, some of the Theban commanders wanted to retreat behind the city walls, instead of risking it all on the plain. It was only Epaminondas' powerful arguments that convinced them to stay and fight. But the Thebans did have two aces up their sleeve. First, their 1,500 cavalry were far better than Sparta's. Second, at the core of their line stood the 300 warriors of the sacred band, ready to unleash hell. Cleombrotus did exactly what everyone expected him to do. He set up his army in a long, solid line, maybe 8 to 12 ranks deep. And as tradition dictated, he put his very best troops, the Spartiates, on the right wing, the position of honor. The plan was the same one they'd used for 100 years. His elite right wing would smash the enemy's left, then turn and roll up the rest of their line. It was powerful, it was predictable, and it had never, ever failed. But Epaminondas wasn't going to play by Sparta's rules. He did something absolutely revolutionary. He completely ignored the conventions of Greek warfare. Instead of spreading his troops out evenly, he took a massive gamble. He deliberately weakened his own center and right flank, thinning them out and ordering them to hang back. Why? Because he took all of his best troops, the Thebans and the sacred band, and stacked them on his left wing, directly opposite the elite Spartans. He didn't create a line, he created a hammer, a column of men an unheard of 50 ranks deep. He was aiming a human battering ram right at Sparta's strongest point. It was an all-or-nothing risk. If that column failed to break the Spartans, his weak right and center would be swallowed whole, and his army would be annihilated. The battle kicked off with the cavalry. Just as Epaminondas hoped, the superior Theban horsemen quickly shattered the Spartan cavalry. The panicked Spartan riders fled, crashing back into their own lines and causing chaos right in front of the elite troops, just as the real fight was about to begin. This was the moment. Epaminondas ordered his 50-deep column to advance. The ground itself must have trembled as this massive block of men in bronze surged forward. The Spartans braced for impact. Then came the crash. A horrifying crunch of shields, spears, and bodies. The sheer weight and momentum of the Theban column was like nothing the Spartans had ever experienced. Their line, only 12 men deep, simply couldn't handle the crushing force of the Theban hammer. The charge, led by Pelopidas and the Sacred Band, smashed a hole straight through the Spartan right. And in the brutal chaos of the fight, King Cleombrotus was struck down. His bodyguards fought like lions to save him, but it was too late. The king was dead. The news rippled through the Spartan ranks. Their king was dead. Their line was broken. Their invincibility was a lie. Panic set in. The Spartan allies in the center and left, who had barely even fought yet, saw the unbeatable Spartans running for their lives. Their will to fight instantly evaporated. The entire army collapsed. The battle had been won with a single, brilliant, and utterly insane tactical blow. When the dust settled, the scene was one of almost unbelievable slaughter. The Theban victory was total. About 1,000 Peloponnesian soldiers were dead. But the most important number was this: 400 of those dead were elite Spartiate citizens. For a city-state that was already having a serious population problem, this was a catastrophic loss they could never recover from. Theban losses were light, maybe 300 men. The news from Leuctra sent a shockwave across the Greek world. The myth of Spartan invincibility, the bedrock of Greek politics for a century, had been shattered in an afternoon. This was a blow from which Sparta would never, ever recover. It was the end of their empire and the beginning of Thebes' time in the sun. In the years that followed, Epaminondas pressed his advantage with stunning boldness. He marched his armies deep into Spartan territory, liberating the Messenian Helots, the massive slave population whose labor allowed the Spartan military to exist, and in doing so, he destroyed Sparta's entire economic system. He didn't just beat their army, he dismantled the very engine that powered their society. Once the masters of Greece, Sparta was now humbled, broken, and reduced to a second-rate power. The battle's influence went far beyond Sparta. Epaminondas' innovations, the deep column, the concentration of force, the angled attack, were revolutionary. And watching all of this, learning, was a young Macedonian prince being held as a political hostage in Thebes. His name was Philip. He would take these ideas, refine them, and pass them down to his son, Alexander the Great, who would use them to conquer the known world. The Battle of Leuctra was more than a victory. It was a turning point for the ancient world. An outnumbered army, led by a brilliant general, dared to throw out the rulebook. Epaminondas didn't just defeat an army, he defeated the idea of Sparta. By stacking his forces and hitting the enemy where they were strongest, he broke their line, their spirit, and their power forever. The fall of Sparta changed the course of Greek history, paving the way for the rise of Thebes and eventually Macedon. It's a timeless lesson that sometimes the only way to beat a giant isn't to be stronger, but to be smarter.